Hello, Cosmic Witches, and welcome back to another episode of the Divine Gossip Girls podcast. We're so excited you're here, and today we're going to be diving into regulating versus expanding. We're going to be talking about when we are disguising staying in your comfort zone with regulating, and when to start expanding yourself, when to start stretching yourself. But before we dive into this episode, I know it's going to be juicy, it's going to be exciting, and I'm sure we're going to push you guys in ways. But before we dive into it, we can now officially say that the door to the fourth round of Aura Elevation is open. So we are opening the doors to you guys only for now. So you're the first to know that the doors are open. You're the first people to get access to this fourth round of Aura Elevation. This is our signature 21-day ritual challenge that we have run the past 2 years. We started it, we run it at the start of the year, and we run one in the spring, summer time as well. And we are so excited to welcome you back into this space where we go through the full chakra system. We give different rituals, different embodiment practices, tap-ins, meditations, and we all hold a workshop each. And it's just full of such amazing, powerful, like-minded souls that come into the space and commit for 3 whole weeks to themselves, to their healing, to their expansion, to their growth, to their aura, to their elevation. And we would love to have you there. So we'll leave a link in the show notes. We don't start until the 8th of August. So you have a full month to claim your space. But if you're like, I want to be in there, I know I want to be there, then the link is in the show notes for you to claim your space. It is only $49. Like, it is so accessible. I believe that the value of this space is over $800. Yet we're giving it to you all for $49, and it's just such a special space. It's a space that people come back to time and time and again the last 3 rounds, and we're so excited to welcome in old members, seasoned Aura Elevation members, alumni, but also new Aura Elevation members. We would love to have you there, whether you've been there before or you're coming as a new client, a new member. But yeah, we'll leave a link in the show notes, and let's go ahead and dive into this episode.
Hey Cosmic Witches! Divine Gossip Girls here, your one and only source into the spiritual happenings of the cosmos.
Ever wonder what this month's energy will have in store for you? What the planets and stars are even up to? Or if the universe can just help you catch a break already?
Well, lucky you, because we have all the spiritual secrets to tell. Get ready to sip on your weekly dose of divine tea.
Okay, let's just dive right in. So this has been a topic that I've been really tapping into myself. The last 2 years, well, even last year and the year before, was a really hard year for me. And it was really about cultivating safety within myself, regulating my nervous system, cultivating safety within business, and really coming deeper into myself. But I recognize as I started to step into this year that I felt like I was making myself small. I was disguising this cultivating safety, regulating my nervous system as a way to stay in my comfort zone. And I was on a call with one of my friends in the coaching industry, and she was like, "What do you need?" Because she was trying to like cultivate safety. How can I make you feel safe? And then she asked, "What is it that you need?" I was like, "I don't want safety. I want to be stretched. I want to be expanded now. I don't want to have it always be about how can we cultivate safety? How can we ease the nervous system? How can we calm the nervous system? Where there's a time and a place for that. Like, I truly believe there obviously is a time and a place for that. But there's also this time where it's like, okay, like, you are safe within yourself. And it's not always about cultivating deeper levels of safety. It's also about how can you expand yourself? How can you stretch yourself and actually like expand your nervous system's capacity for putting yourself out there, or expanding what's possible for you, or expanding your mind. So I'd love to hear, because I know that for Maggie, if I was to look at Maggie's also someone who talks a lot about meditation and different things like that, but she's also someone who will push you. Who
I
will
was
push
going
you?
to say,
Yeah.
that's why you're friends with me.
Yeah. Like, it was like Maggie's one of those people. It's like, yes, there's a time. Yes, there's like a time where you're like, okay, like what I need right now is to cultivate that safety and regulate myself. But being mindful of it, if this is holding you back and keeping you small or keeping you in a comfort zone, or is it really what you need in that moment? You know?
It's sometimes you need that expansion because you get so stuck in your comfort zone that you realize that this isn't helping you anymore. It's just coping. And it's like a vice that you've started to lean on. So that's what I say. Like sometimes I have to do this even for myself. I mean, I do this for my friends. I've done this for you, Sophie, when we've jumped on a call and you're like, I'm just feeling so low. I can't do it. I can't do it. And, a lot of people will be like, yes, of course, take your time. And like, I also hold that space. I mean, you guys will hear in a bit, Carly is not well today. And I told her, like, get out of here. We'll do that episode without you. But she was like, no, no, I think I can do an episode. I'm fine. And so, there's times where you're like, yes, of course, like hold space and like rest and take care of yourself. But then there's also times when I'm like, okay, by staying in that comfort zone, is it just going to make you feel worse? Like when Sophie would come on and she'd be like, I don't feel like I feel really low. I feel really fearful. I just don't feel it today. And I'd be like, get up, press record, and start talking. Or she'd be like, I have nothing to say. And I'm like, that is a lie. Start talking. We're not going to talk. You have to fill the empty space here. And then afterwards, it's like, oh no, I feel so much better because sometimes you need that push to expand. And I do this even for myself is sometimes I'm not feeling well, like maybe emotionally. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to just take this day to rest. And then the next day I might wake up and feel that way still too. And sometimes it's like, okay, you know what? I don't need to rest. I need to kick my little butt into gear and leave the house with my computer and sit somewhere and do some work. And I'm going to feel so much better because of that.
Yeah, exactly. And I've been recognizing that so much more recently because I have been doing my Instagram lives, like weekly Instagram lives that do not every single time I do it. This morning, I was like, ready, let's go. But like sometimes I do feel anxious. And before I started them, it wasn't something that felt comfortable within me to do. But if I was to be like, oh, wait till I regulate myself, wait till I feel calm and confident to do this, then I'll do it. But it's not until you start doing it and when you start taking that action, when you start kind of lovingly pushing yourself and stretching yourself, that's where that expansion can happen, that growth can happen within you. And it was something that I've been really thinking more and more about because I am doing these lives and doing more workshops. And after these sessions, that's when I feel my most alive. That's when I feel my most confidence. Like even yesterday, like yeah, Mondays are kind of my kind of rest days because I work all weekend and I work all during the week. So I try and keep Mondays as kind of like a slow off day. But I had a workshop last night that I was holding inside my membership, and all day, like I really did feel really tired. And I took a nap like about 4 o'clock, and this workshop was at 6. And honestly, I was like, oh, I could just really sleep. Like I could just really just do nothing. I don't really want to do this. But then I got on the workshop and I came off like during the workshop. And then when I came off, I felt so much better within myself. I felt so much more alive within myself. And sometimes it's about like, okay, do I need to just cultivate ease or rest or regulation? Or what if I was to push myself and put myself into this action and into this energy and start bringing that back alive within me?
All right, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and talk now. So you can probably hear that I'm a bit congested. But I also wanted to just say that I feel like there's seasons where sometimes it is time for us to build that sense of safety. I feel like working with the nervous system is kind of the idea of like you have to root to rise. And every single level that you reach, you're going to have to root down into. You're going to have to find a sense of stability or safety, whether that be through, your routines or just working with a mentor or, doing something to kind of help regulate yourself in that stage. But then we also know that there is a time for us to rise, and that's that expansion point. And like the girls are mentioning, there is a lot of like our ego can get in the way of us being confused, whether it's like, okay, do I genuinely like soulfully need to rest and just like stay here at this phase or like at this point right now and just focus on like my, what I'm doing now? Or is it really time for me to expand and take action? Because I feel like there is a fear and like the sense of anxiety that we get when we don't have stable foundations. And then there's a sense of fear and anxiety we get when we're in the face of, we know it's time to leave our comfort zone and we're starting to feel fear. And one of my favorite ways to kind of address this is to speak to my highest self and ask myself, have pep talks with myself. I do this a lot in my car, and oftentimes what that looks like is I just sit down and I ask myself, okay, highest self, like, what is it that I need today? What is it that is going on here? And I just start to talk through things. Okay, I'm feeling this in my body. I'm feeling this in my chest. What is it telling me? And then all of a sudden I'll start to kind of get the answer of, do I need the rest? Or is it more so just me kind of holding myself back out of a place of fear or out of a place of lack or feeling unworthy of whatever's coming, or kind of being in that victim mindset that I tend to trap myself in? I know I've been dealing a lot with like health issues over the past couple of months, and I started realizing over honestly the past week, the holy shit, I have been keeping myself stuck in that same cycle by just kind of telling myself time and time again. And I do think there was a time and place for me to, grieve this period and kind of be in this state of like, okay, like what the fuck is going on, body? But then I started to realize over this next week, if I don't start doing something, then we're just going to keep going in spirals. Like we're not going anywhere. So that's the place where I'm like, all right, it's time to expand. It's time to shift out of this. Like we've lived in the land of like stress for too long. It's time to shift.
I think you do need that balance. It's like you need to really be aware of when your body deeply needs rest or when you need to take a break. Like everyone needs breaks. We're human, whether that's a break to go on vacation, whether that's a break from regular routines, whether that's you're sick and you genuinely need to just be like, okay, let's rest. Like, I know there's times that I get sick because I have a lot of different chronic stuff going on, but I know there's times I get sick and I'll be out for, maybe 2 weeks, and I start to feel so guilty because I'm like, okay, well, if I don't do it, it's not getting done. And if it's not getting done, then I don't have a business, and it's difficult. This is on a business side of things and like work, but it's difficult because then I'm just stuck in this place where I feel guilty for resting, but I really need rest. But it's like, okay, if I can just be like, okay, this is the time I need for rest, those next few weeks when I finally do start to feel better, as long as I'm not saying, well, I still need this rest, and I'm being like, no, it's time to change it up. I've also done it with like moving my body where it's like, oh, certain types of working out or certain types of movement cause like my body just can't do with my chronic stuff going on. And rather than just being like, well, I guess it just needs rest all the time, it's like, okay, now this rest isn't feeling good either. I need to find ways to work with myself. So even if it's that not just taking these huge leaps and always pushing yourself, it's like sometimes with the action and sometimes with the expansion, it's like I need to start working with myself and I need to find a good balance. And I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, I think it's that balance and that self-awareness. That self-awareness of like, okay, is this coming from a place of fear or is this coming from a place of genuine need from your body, and starting to like get to know yourself on that deeper level of like how to start working with it, how to start working with yourself. Because for me, and you guys know, and if you've been following the podcast, you've been following my podcast, like we all go, like what Carly said, like through different seasons, and depending on what challenges you're facing with what things are going on within your life as well, like it's going to look different. And even this quote unquote like stretching or expanding like that, it doesn't need to look like these big massive leaps. It can just look like taking action that does feel a little bit scary, like going on Instagram live or doing some work rather than just resting, or whatever that may look like. But for me, I had just spent so much time, and I loved what you said, Carly, about I've been in this kind of like stress for too long, like it's time to get out. So it's just like being aware of like when you're now just staying in this due to being familiar and comfy to you, and when you can start to be like, okay, like how can I just stretch myself a little bit each day out of this, and getting to know what you genuinely do need and what your body, what your energy is actually asking for you, so that you don't stay within your comfort zone, so you don't stay stuck in these limitations and in this box that you're not meant to stay in.
Because we're creatures of habits. So that's the thing, right? We're creatures of habit. And so sometimes our circumstances have changed, but our comfort zone is still there and we're stuck there. Like I've had a really hard year. Like you know this if you've been listening to the podcast. I had a really rough living situation. My environment wasn't super comfortable. And so I wasn't in my routines of working out, of doing meditation, of doing whatever it is to like have a morning. I was just like in my bed scrolling all the time because I just didn't want to leave my room because I wasn't comfortable. And then now that I'm here and I'm in a much different living situation, there was a little bit when I first got here that I found myself still doing the same things, right? Because I was safe in my own room and I felt myself not leaving. And now I'm like, no, I'm safe to leave. And that has taken a push to be like, no, get up, write the first thing and go, and don't bring your phone, and go out and like read your book. I'm like doing meditations outside and I feel so much better because of it. But my comfort zone and my, routine, the rut that I was in was just, oh, you just stay here because if you can get like an extra hour in the morning of just like peace, it's worth it, even if it doesn't set you up well for the day. And we're creatures of habits. And I think it's important to ask yourself, like, what is harder? And that's how you can decide, like, do I need to regulate or do I need to expand? Like, what's harder, doing this and the outcome that happens from it, or like sticking in my routines and the outcome that comes from that, the cycle that comes from that, or pushing myself to change. And I just had this conversation with a friend who's going through a lot of family drama, and she's trying to set boundaries and her boundaries just keep getting overstepped. And I said to her, what is harder? What's going to hurt you more? I said, you're hurt either way, unfortunately, with this, because it's really hard for you to stand in your boundaries. But what's going to hurt you more? Is it going to be to go and do this thing that's crossing your boundaries and the ramifications and the cycles that happen from that? Or is it to have to push back and fight a little bit by standing in your boundaries and then it's over? And she was like, that's true. I'm going to stand in my boundary and then it's over. She's like, it's exhausting and it's upsetting and I'm hurt. But saying that they can just step over my boundaries and doing this thing anyways, and then the cycles that come from that is much more prolonged hurt, right? So it's like they're both difficult. So it's like finding the strength to do the thing that feels more difficult right up front, but in the long run saves you a lot of grief.
Well, and I feel like regulating and expanding also happen together. Like, I think in like that instance of, having to set a boundary, first you have to like regulate yourself a little bit. Like, even in that moment, just being like, okay, like do some sort of like breathing or something to ground you before you can even step forward and take that like really bold action that might be outside of your comfort zone. And I think something that's helped me expand way more than I ever had before, especially when struggling with an eating disorder and living in that cycle for so many years. I did have to find a lot of safety within my body again. But I think like one of the biggest ways for me to start to kind of understand more, when it was like intuitively, like my spirit was telling me, okay, it's time to grow, it's time to expand, or if it was my ego trying to hold me back, was just creating like a daily routine where I would check in with myself. And I know that's a lot easier said than done, but I feel like the only way to really know, sometimes it's like you take the action, you see the repercussions depending on, if it felt good, if it didn't. That's kind of how you learn, with trial and error, if what you're meant to do. But also just having like a daily kind of check-in thing, a really like sacred space for yourself, for you to connect to your energy. I feel like that is such a crucial thing to have in your daily life, to be able to flow more with your energy and not just always feel like you're kind of like going down the river of life and always hitting a dam or always hitting a curve and not realizing that it was coming. It's through being more connected to yourself, because the more connected you are to yourself and your intuition, the more strongly you can pick up on if you're just kind of like bullshitting yourself or like gaslighting yourself to stay in a comfort zone, or if it's time for you to like expand. But also sometimes we can't see our blind spots. Like our ego can be so sneaky, and we can really talk ourselves into anything that sounds good because our minds are that powerful. Like if it supports our current belief system, we can believe ourselves into anything. So sometimes you need like a friend or a mentor or an outside perspective where you just have a conversation of, oh, I've been hanging out here for some time thinking about these things, going in loops and loops, and then they'll be the one to be like, get the fuck out and do something different. Or they may be like, all right, you've been doing way too much. It's time for you to just rest and chill out because it really sounds like you have a lot on your plate. So, like, if you can't see it yourself, it's okay to also, like, in the mixture of connecting to yourself, also have those mentors, those people in your life that you know are going to be like your, like they'll mirror back to you what's going on that you can't see.
Real quick, Soph, because I want to say something directly on what Carly said. If you don't know, like Carly was saying, have that reflection with yourself. If you don't know what that reflection with yourself should look like, a really great thing to do just to get started, and it doesn't have to be super woo-woo, it's just what decisions and actions did I take yesterday and how did they make me feel? And all that does, and you don't have to like then judge anything from it, but then maybe after a week of writing down at the end of the day everything you did and the repercussions within your body and within your energy after, you'll start to see some patterns. So maybe you think, oh, I sit down and I scroll on my phone in the morning and it wakes me up. And that's what you think because that's what you're believing. That's why you're doing it, right? But then you realize that you're so groggy for like an hour or 2 hours after you get off, and it's not until you get off those screens that you lose that grogginess. And you'll start to see the patterns, and it'll help you reflect and see, oh, what's actually regulating and expanding me? Like, what's actually the things that are rooting me and then making me feel safe enough to take that expansion? And what is like a comfort zone or a vice or something that is holding me back a little bit? You know what I mean?
I think those are perfect prompts to just wrap this up. I feel like those were perfect. I was gonna go off, but I was like, you know what? I feel like that's good, like tangible integration steps for you to take. Like take those prompts that Maggie just gave, maybe going back and writing them down and journaling them out each night before you go to bed and starting to pick up those patterns and pick up the habits that are like kind of going on and how that's making you feel, how that's making you show up in your day to day. And maybe at the end of the week, maybe doing it for one whole week, and at the end of the week, just looking at where you are regulating and where you are expanding, or where you're not regulating and where you're not expanding, what needs to shift, what wants to shift, so that your regulating can actually support you. The regulating that you are embodying and leaning into is actually regulating you, and the expansion that you are leaning into starts to expand you. Because like Carly said as well, it's like it's this balance. It's like this dance between regulating and expanding as well. It's like when I get up in the morning, I do practices that regulate me but also expand me. And with that cultivated energy, how can you step into your day stretching yourself, stretching that energy, expanding that energy within you? So I love those prompts, and I love like the intention of like reflecting on that each day this week. If you're listening to this on Sunday or whatever day you're listening to, please take those prompts and reflect on them for one whole week. Reflect on them for one whole week and let us know. Let us know, even if you want to share with us what patterns have come up, just to share them with us. Because Carly said maybe a mentor or a coach or a friend that can support you or mirror back things to you. Let us know. And this is also another powerful, powerful part of our elevation. You don't just get access to myself, Carly, and Maggie. You get access to a full fucking amazing community of like-minded souls that are on this journey of expansion, of healing.
And it's a great way to get into routines, like routines that will root and expand you. You're going to every single day have just a small little routine ritual, a small little energetic spiritual practice that can be as long as you want. Some of them are 10 minutes, and you could take it deeper if you want to stretch it to an hour, but they don't take very long. And this will help you find routines that you really like, that help you root, that help you feel expansive, but also get you into the routine of healthy routines and healthy practices and things that make you feel really grounded and also very sparkly and fresh and like you're gonna zoot off to the moon.
Yeah, and that's what we're kind of focusing on in each day. If you have been in aura elevation before, you'll know. But if you haven't, we take 3 days in each chakra. One day we're going to be reconnecting with that energy, and another day we're going to be rising with that energy, and then another day is going to be for integration. So you'll be able to really start getting into these rituals, into these routines that are going to support you in regulating, but also expanding and connecting with yourself, but also rising into yourself as well. So, like I said at the start, it's only $49. It is a no-brainer, a no fucking brainer. Honestly, it's the best. It's our favorite thing that we've ever created, and we've got so many amazing things coming to this space and also just beyond. So it's the place you want to be. So if you haven't already signed up, go do that right now.
You get the chance to sign up first. No one else knows if you're
Exactly.
listening to this live. So go get your spot. There's limited spots, but we'll see you next week, and we love ya.
We'll see you next week.
Bye.
I
Bye.
oh my gosh, I sound like a frog. Bye guys.